It's time to take a ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive with our co-hosts, Alan Saunders and Zachary Smith.
Welcome into another episode of Steelers Afternoon Drive. I'm Zachary Smith. That is Alan Saunders. And that what you just heard was a 15-second version of the best intro that you could ever possibly hear. If you were here for Thursday's live stream for hitting 10,000 YouTube subscribers, you got to hear the full, around 2 minutes version of that, Alan, something like that. But it was a great live stream. Shout out to everybody that was part of that. Really enjoyed doing that. Alan, how are you doing?
I'm good. It's going back in the Disney vault. I don't know. You're probably too young to know what that is, but like when you were my age, Disney movies, instead of like streaming and being forever available, they would like say like, hey, we're going to sell Cinderella for like 6 weeks and then never again. So if you don't buy it in these 6 weeks, screw you. And then put it back in the Disney vault. That was their advertising.
You did unlock a memory. So like I was very young, but I do remember like watching the old Disney movies and like the video that I can picture with like the vault opening and showing that was going to be a thing. Like that's what I'm picturing right now.
It's an interesting sales strategy there, going with the make it scarce. Maybe that's what we'll do here. Maybe we'll make it we'll just only break out the full version of the song for big events.
Makes it feel more important. There's actually a place by me. Are you familiar with Hanks in Beaver County?
I know of it just because I worked for the Beaver County Times and it's like semi-legendary, but I don't think I've ever been there.
So like, their thing is they shut down for a few months. So then like everybody's really anticipating it reopening when they do in March. So like from November through February, they're closed. So then it builds anticipation.
I guess the same concept is like the McRib, right? Like if the McRib was always on the McDonald's menu, no one would ever order it because it's terrible. But because it's there for a limited time only, you got to go get it. I feel like we're way off topic already, and I love it.
We are way off topic. And in my head, I was trying to think, okay, how am I going to bring this back to Dan Moore getting first team reps at left tackle? But that's where I want to start this conversation today. I feel like that's kind of where the headline is. If you're a Steelers fan and you were on X and you saw that get dropped that Dan Moore was taking first team reps at left tackle, everybody's quotes. I was looking at Nick's quote tweets of that and stuff. They were on fire. Alan, what in the world is going on? I just thought Broderick Jones had this left tackle spot down for good.
I did too, man. I don't really get it. I think he played, look, did he face the guys that Moore faced in the first 3 weeks of the season? No. Jadeveon Clowney is okay, good, but clearly not of the caliber of those guys the first 3 weeks. But I thought Broderick was more than good enough to continue to deserve that playing time. I don't really understand this decision. I don't think it makes the team better. I don't know. I'm a little at a loss for what's going on here. I really thought strongly that we would see Broderick keep that spot after Moore came back, and Moore's barely been good enough in general. I don't know, guy coming off a knee injury, like that's I don't know. I normally I'm the guy who like sees the emotional reaction that the fans are having and is like, I can explain what's really going on here. Don't worry, guys. And I don't know that I have those for this one.
That's kind of what I was hoping would happen. I thought you would be like, listen, Smitty, like it's the Monday of the bye week. It's basically an extra practice. They're just like getting him back in there, getting him acclimated, and this isn't going to be a thing. But I don't know. Yeah, either way, like with the way that Steelers fan base is, you knew even if that was going to be the case, like this would be the reaction. But I mean, if you're questioning it, then now I'm like, my meter's gone up a little bit more than even where it was at before we started recording. So
yeah, I just I don't know. I don't see it. I think Jones is the future of the position, and really like the bonus practice today, like that's when you want to get young guys. Like this would have been the practice that Broderick Jones should have been working with the first team, even if Dan Moore was still starting, and so I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me. If he's going to start, he needs those reps. It doesn't make sense. I don't know. This is and here's the other thing is that there was good reasoning behind not starting Broderick Jones at tackle to begin the season. One, Dan Moore was a better player all off season. Anyone that tells you otherwise just wasn't paying close enough attention. Dan Moore won that job legit, fair and square. Okay. 2, the difficulty of the assignment at the beginning of the season was significant. Having guys like Bosa and Garrett and Crosby in the first 3 weeks, you want the more experienced player, the guy who's played against them, the guy who's had a lot of success against Myles Garrett. You want Dan Moore out there in those circumstances. All of that made sense. It was good process. Okay. This stretch, if you're talking about now, they didn't have a choice to play against the Ravens, but if you were looking at from the very beginning of the year, where should the Steelers try to be inserting Broderick Jones into the lineup? Well, you got a bye, so you got extra practices, and then you have the Rams, the Jaguars, and the Tennessee Titans. And the only reason I can name you an edge rusher on any of those teams is because I covered Rashad Weaver at Pitt. Like, that is not a strong group of edge rushers right now. Like, they are not. It is just not this should be a 3-week easing into the position period for Broderick Jones, and I can't fathom why they would turn that away.
Do you think, and maybe getting ahead of ourselves a little bit here, but of course, like being the fan perspective here, I feel like I should bring this up. Does something like this, do you think it's possible to stunt the growth of a player like Broderick Jones? Like with an ascending player like him, just had a really good week against the Ravens. You got a bye week here. Now you're putting him back on the bench. Like, in terms of the process that we just talked about, what do you think about that?
No, I mean, I don't think it'll hurt him. I just don't understand it. I guess is what I would say. Like, it's not going to hurt. I don't think it's the thing that is the best for the team. It doesn't make sense to me. And I really don't get it.
It's like, I think there would still be people that were like, let's not even turn back to Dan Moore, even if Broderick Jones went out there and didn't have the best performance, just because they would say, let him take his lumps. This is how he's going to grow as a player and stuff. But he played well in this game too. Like, that's the thing. It's not even like he played poorly and you're thinking this is a rookie player that took his lumps. This is going to happen with rookie tackles. He played well. So it just seems odd to then kind of revert back to that and go back to a guy that's been below average for them so far at that position this year when he has been healthy.
Yeah, and really, like, the pass protection was the thing that you thought might be an issue for Jones, and I thought he was okay. There was he gave up one bad inside pressure, which you can't do. But man, like, I thought he was good enough to keep playing. I said that on this show, that I thought he was good enough to keep playing, and that I didn't think Dan Moore would get his job back. I really, the only thing I can think of, and we didn't talk to Broderick Jones today, so maybe this is still out there. Maybe he got nicked up a little bit. That's if you're looking for like a rational reason for this that makes sense to me, that's the only one I've got, is that maybe he got nicked up a little bit. They just wanted to take it easy on him today. That's all I got.
Right. And, something like that, maybe we find out tomorrow. We'll find out more, I guess, as the week progresses, and we'll see how
I'm
those
sure
reps.
it'll be like number 2 question to Mike Tomlin.
Yeah.
Who's your starting left tackle? Like, it has to be at this point. And, the Steelers don't have to release an injury report for today. So, like, if he had been limited in practice, I can only tell you what I was able to get confirmed by a player. So even if I saw what Broderick Jones did at practice, because I didn't talk to him, I can't say. And they're not going to release an injury report today because it's not an official practice day. So maybe don't totally overreact until Wednesday or till Tomlin talks tomorrow, but I'm very confused by this. Let's just say that.
Yeah. Well, I think that you're kind of in lockstep with pretty much everybody else then in that. But we were joking around before we started recording, and we said that we appreciated the Steelers for doing this to give us a topic to kick off the show. Just a nice little headline there for us to talk about. Yeah, good content.
Just chucking raw meat into the Tigers' cage. That's all they're doing.
Exactly.
It's very appreciated from a media perspective.
This is only a conversation because of Dan Moore returning from injury. There's several players that are returning from injury. We had heard from
There's
Diontae
also
Johnson.
Good injury news.
Yeah, that's very true. There is good injury news. Diontae Johnson mentioned prior to the bye week that he was targeting the state to come back. Him and Anthony McFarland both had those 21-day windows opened up today. And then Pat Freiermuth, who I fully expected to not even be part of the possible equation here. Like, I thought, man, we're looking at maybe the Jags game for him to return from a hamstring injury. And I know that there's varying degrees of hamstring injuries, right? But especially with, Diontae dealing with the hamstring injury and seeing how much time he missed, those things are very tricky. So I just assumed he'll miss the Ravens game. We got the bye week, probably miss the Rams game. Maybe he comes back for that Jags game, but this dude's talking like he's playing. And then DeMarvin Leal clearing concussion protocol as well. So yeah, some good injury news for the Steelers as well.
Yeah, hamstring problems have been going around, right? You got Diontae, you got Freiermuth, you got Presley Harvin, who, by the way, said that he is yet to punt a football, even though they cut Brad Wing last week. Oh, it's a little weird to be throwing that out there. Because they're very confident in him coming back, or nobody else picking up Brad Wing, one or the other. There's a good chance I think you're going to see DeMarvin Leal play this week. He's cleared from the concussion protocol. He might even start. I would expect it to be a big. I would not expect it to be a big base defense kind of game. The Rams are going to play a ton of 11 personnel with those 3 receivers. So I don't know that you're going to see a ton of base defense, which I think is Leal's best position is end in base. But we'll see how much he's used. Freiermuth, I don't know, man. I was with you. I was kind of writing him off for this week. He was very insistent he's coming back. I will say this about hamstrings, and you can really apply this to all 3 of those guys, is that it doesn't really matter how you feel today. There's all it takes is 1/10 of a second between now and that game, and you just feel something, and then you're back out. Like, you can be feeling good and feeling like you're going to play, and then Friday comes, and you're like, yeah, not playing. And so especially it's cold. Right. Like, I mean, this is really the first time these guys have been practicing in 40-degree temperatures. This is when you pull your hamstring anyway, when you're healthy, let alone when you're trying to come back from an injury. And so we'll see about that. I don't know. If I were to rank here's who I think is going to play. Anthony McFarland, number 1, he's in. I'm very confident about that. Sure seems like Diontae Johnson is going to play. And then more Freiermuth. I don't know. We'll see. I still don't understand, why they would play more even if he is healthy. But again, coming back from a knee sprain, just one practice. Don't even know if he was a full participant in practice. I don't know. We'll see. Leal is going to play. And then Harvin. I don't know. I don't know how he can feel confident if he hasn't even kicked the football yet. We'll see.
Right. Well, I didn't know that prior to this, and now I'm just thinking, like, what was the reason that they cut bait with Wing when they did then? Like, why not see how Presley was feeling this week?
I guess just to not take up a practice squad spot with a guy that you don't need to watch punt. If they were even I'm not even sure they did any special teams. I bet Boswell hasn't kicked either. Like, it just doesn't matter. Like, if you have a punter on the roster or not, I guess, unless you're worried that somebody else is going to snag him, I guess is all that there is.
Yeah. I wanted to bring up something I didn't have on here, but as we were talking, I thought of it because it just came out today. On the other side for the Rams, Kyren Williams not going to play in this game, and their backup running back is going to miss 4 or 5 weeks. So curious to see how the Rams do there. But Kyren Williams just had 150 on the ground in this game, all of that pretty much coming in the second half, their most recent game. So that would be pretty significant on the other side for them as well.
Yeah, I think so. It's interesting. They've done a really good job of absorbing the loss of offensive personnel and keeping that offense going. But Kyren Williams himself was not supposed to be some kind of great running, but this will really be the test of is it just the scheme, or you know what I mean? Because I don't think anybody came into the season predicting Kyren Williams to be some kind of difference maker for the Rams, and then he has been, and now that he's out, will the next guy be, or won't he be? I think that's an interesting question. Probably not the big thing. You got to find a way to slow down the passing scheme first and foremost. They're a passing team first and a running team second, and their 3 sort of interchangeable receivers in Kupp, Atwell, and Nakua are definitely going to be the big challenge this week, and not really so much who's running the ball, but you take them as you can get them, and the Steelers' run defense can certainly use the help. Ranked 29th in rushing yards per game against. That's not good.
Yeah. Yep. And Cooper Kupp, man, he just picked right back up. You wondered, like, dealing with another injury, hasn't been the healthiest player over the last couple of seasons since his ridiculous 2021, and he has just picked right back up with Matthew Stafford, who, again, another guy that I was really questioning how he was going to come back from his injury too.
Yeah, Stafford's looked really good. I mean, he's not a guy that I thought a lot of coming into this year because of the elbow and whether his arm was healthy and that kind of thing. But, this has been a team that's been positively surprising, I think. Will be certainly a really strong test for the Steelers coming out of the bye here.
Yeah. Speaking of that, even though the Steelers were on a bye, at least from a fan perspective, yesterday couldn't have gone worse for a team that wasn't playing. Like, Baltimore wins early. It starts early in the morning too. Baltimore playing 9:30 a.m. Eastern in London, getting a win over the Titans. San Fran drops one to Cleveland with PJ Walker starting at quarterback for the Browns. And then Cincinnati holds on against Seattle as well. And also, like, look outside of the division. Also, any AFC versus NFC matchup also ended in an AFC victory. Like, everything that the Steelers could have wanted to happen did not happen. None of it.
Well, I'll tell you what, from a beat writer perspective, I watched 14 hours of football yesterday, and so that went about as good as it could have possibly gone for me. Is that it was mostly just football. I did some writing. I made soup. You made soup. We both made soup yesterday. It was a soup. It's soup season. It's a soupy kind of feel. I made chicken tortilla. It was very good. First time I made that recipe. Solid. I'll go back to it. I really enjoyed just watching the football, but not good for the Steelers. They didn't get any help. And I also think, they didn't, like, if you really want to sit there and comparison is the thief of joy. But if you look at what the Browns did against the 49ers with a backup quarterback, and then you look at what the Steelers did against the 49ers with a starting quarterback, and you kind of, like that's not looking very promising, right? Like, that Cleveland team, they are, despite spending more money than any other team in the league on the quarterback position, they appear to be a quarterback away from being the best team in the league.
Yeah, I mean, that defense is insane. Between them and the Jets, I don't know who I was more impressed with defensively, just because San Fran, now limiting San Fran the way that Cleveland did, obviously very impressive. But when they lose CMC, when they lose Deebo Samuel, Trent Williams ended up being able to play in that game, but he was dealing with an injury early on too. Some of those other pieces that they were missing. And then you look at the Jets neutralizing Philly with Lane Johnson got hurt in that game, obviously. Which of those two were you more impressed with defensively, the Browns or the Jets?
I kind of thought the Eagles kicked that game away more than the Jets just won it. I feel like the Browns just beat the 49ers.
Yeah.
I mean, I have Brock Purdy on my fantasy team. I'm watching that game man, he can't do anything. It was just bad. The Eagles made mistakes. I just feel like the 49ers got whooped. And that's a really good defense. They're playing without Deshaun Watson. They're playing without Nick Chubb. They're putting up points on the 49ers defense. Man, that's a pretty good team. On one hand, not good that a team in your division looks that good. On the other hand, the Steelers beat them, so they have that going for them.
Yeah, and they beat Baltimore. If you're looking at defensive EPA, those are number 1 and 2 in the entire league, are Baltimore and Cleveland. So, or Cleveland then Baltimore, 1 and 2. Yeah, very impressed by what they've done, especially defensively by what they've done. Cincinnati, Seattle. What were your takeaways from that one? I mean, so if you look at Seattle was able to move the ball, but then they got into the red zone and weren't able to do anything. Is that more a product, do you think, of Cincinnati's red zone defense, or was that Seattle's red zone offense?
I think Seattle just isn't that good, and Cincinnati is. Burrow was hurt. We know how much Burrow means to that team. I think he's healthy now. That's where I'm at with it. They're still, T. Higgins is still banged up. They're not fully at 100%, but I would not be picking. The Bengals are not they're behind everybody else, and they're not they're in the rearview mirror, man. Now they have a tough schedule. They play the Bills, the 49ers, and the Chiefs still, I think. They've got a very difficult schedule. But man, they're They're going to be coming too. We talked about this division. I really thought before the season, when we talked about this division, that Pittsburgh, Cleveland, and Baltimore were close, and Cincinnati was a step ahead. Cincinnati loses Burrow for the early part of the season, or at least loses the effectiveness of Burrow, takes a step back. And now I feel like you have 4 very evenly matched teams. Like, I swear to God, 4-way tie at 9-8 for the AFC North title. Like,
yeah, and I'm adding another blood pressure medication. I think that's what we decided at the beginning of the year.
like
And the thing is,
with it happening, like it's
with
all right
Cincinnati. The thing is too, like, no one was able to jump out to that like super hot start. You know, like no one got to 5-1 to really put them in the rear view. Baltimore's leading at 4-2, but no one like created much of a gap while Cincinnati was down.
And I'll be honest, like Baltimore has kind of looked. Baltimore's in first place, and you can make a very good argument that, like, okay, Cleveland's been playing without Deshaun, playing without Chubb. They're going to get Watson back at some point. They'll get healthier. Burrow was hurt. Cincinnati was sidetracked by that. You know, the Steelers and the Ravens are in first and second place, and you could make a very good argument that I feel better about the Browns and the Bengals' chances of being great by the end of the season than I do either Pittsburgh or Baltimore. Like, I think the bottom 2 teams are going to I have more reasons to think they're going to get better than I do the Steelers and the Ravens.
Yeah, I agree. Especially, I mean, I feel like Cincinnati looks like they're pretty much all the way back. So I definitely agree there with Cleveland. It's just still a question mark about the quarterback play that they're going to get, even when Deshaun does come back, whenever that might be. So I feel really good about Cincinnati, which makes me feel really bad. That's kind of where I'm at with that one. I wanted to ask, well, we're talking about what could really hamper the Steelers is that offense. Diana Rossini reporting that there will be no change to Matt Canada's status as the offensive coordinator, which means he won't be fired, but also like put away the idea of somebody else taking over play calling duties in season as well. This is a report that we kind of already knew, right? But I guess just somebody on a national level putting it out there.
I read the thing and I was like, like, no shit. Like, I gotta, you know, sometimes you get scooped and sometimes people write things that you're like, yeah, we've known that since July. I don't know. Like, thank you. The Steelers they have never fired a coordinator in season. In fact, I don't even think they've ever fired a position coach it's very, very rare. There was one coordinator that got relieved of their duties before the last week of the Ray Sherman was relieved of his play calling duties the week 17. Like, they're not making a change while they're still in it. And we just talked for 10 minutes about how they're still in it and how close the division is. Like, I wrote a long story at SteelersNow.com last week about what happens to teams when they fire their offensive coordinator. The biggest takeaway was the team gets worse after they fire their offensive coordinator. They score a couple more points. They gain a little bit fewer yards, but the winning percentage is worse for teams after firing their offensive coordinator than before. That's every team over the last 7 years. Also, no one has hired an external replacement for offensive coordinator, so you're stuck with the guys you got. I don't think that Mike Sullivan is a better option. I don't think I expect people to be pleased with the Steelers' offense, the way things are going. I think people should be happy about it. I was talking to Jeff Hartman on the Let's Ride podcast this morning. Well, I was talking to him yesterday, but the podcast came out this morning. And I made this analogy. I want to hear your thoughts on this. Like, firing Matt Canada right now would sort of being like, if you're running a marathon and the 10th mile, you make the decision in your head, like, I absolutely have to buy new shoes. Like, I cannot go farther with these shoes. Like, they're just killing me. Do you take them off and run the rest of the race barefoot at that point? Like, that's not it. Like, that's like, you're stuck with what you got right now. Like, you can't get better in this very moment unless your marathon route happens to go right past the Dick's Sporting Goods. Like, you're stuck. You're just stuck with what you have. And it's a bad situation, but there's just no good way out of it, no matter how angry or mad at your feet you are.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to think of another analogy right now. For me personally, I would have never gone into the marathon.
I go, same. Running is torture. And no, none.
Yeah. Well, the way I'm putting, well, me physically, I wouldn't run a marathon either. But like even using this analogy,
Oh
what
yeah.
I'm saying is
Don't
I
start the
wouldn't have
season with him.
started the
Yeah.
season with Matt Canada. Yeah.
Or at the very least, give yourself a better option. Like where was like the idea to keep Matt Canada had some good points, but there were also a lot of good reasons to not. And if you go into a season with a guy with a lot of good reasons to not keep him, you should probably give yourself a better plan B than what the Steelers have. Like, what's funny is like, if you go on Twitter, X, whatever, and you see people like, oh, I'm going to spout off ideas, random ideas, like this guy could be a coach, this guy could be a coach. Most of the time, that guy's currently employed by another NFL team and some sort of BS consultant, analyst, senior. It's like, oh, maybe the Steelers will bring in John Gruden. No, he's working for the Saints, so they're not going to bring in John Gruden. Oh, maybe the Steelers would bring in Jim Caldwell. I forget where he is, but he's working for someone, right?
Carolina.
Yeah, okay. Maybe the Steelers bring in Cliff Kingsbury. No, he's working at UFC. Like, where's the guy that's working for the Steelers? You don't get the guy now. You do what all those teams did, and you get the guy in the offseason so that when you want to fire your coach on October 15th, you have an alternative. Like, this was a clear failure from the Steelers to add to that coaching staff. We saw the tangible benefit of adding Terrell Austin to Keith Butler, of adding Brian Flores to Terrell Austin. Then Flores leaves. Look, that's part of the business. You're going to lose these guys. Why didn't they replace Flores on defense? Why didn't they do the same thing on offense? It was that their own success was staring them in the face, and they didn't do it. I don't know, man. I just that's the failure here more than anything else. You could argue for or against keeping Canada before the season. You could argue for or against keeping Canada right now. I've yet to hear any reasonable argument for not giving themselves a better option ahead of time other than cheapness and laziness, and I'm not accepting those.
I 100% agree. I mean, we've had that same conversation. If we haven't had it, I've had it with like 10 other people and probably 5 times on Around the 412. It's just, yeah, the failure was done prior to the season starting, and there's not really much you can do about it now.
Yeah, there really isn't. Like, there's nothing they can do other than try to make improvements within the system. Like, it is what it is. Like, there's no, unless they get to a point where the season is just sideways and they're out of it and you want to give somebody else a chance, that's fine. But we should not have any expectation that would be better. It probably would not, and it is what it is. Like, there's no way around it. Like, they're stuck.
I want to end off the episode with a YouTube comment, and this is based off a conversation Nick and I actually had on Friday, where this time of year, and especially like on the bye week, you knew like trade stuff was going to start ramping up with the deadline being on the 31st of this month. And Nick actually, interestingly enough, like I was thinking corner as a spot for this team to add to first and foremost, but he brought up safety, and that Thomas Brocious, who is a ball knower for sure. We've given him the ball knower award before. First off, he knows how to do it. This is why I listen to you guys every day. The question and answer format just lets Alan and Nick drop dimes. That perimeter defense was worth a price of admission. If there is a price of admission, well, there's not. Like and subscribe, totally free here on YouTube. But basically, he says, do you think that a new strong safety would help with a perimeter defense? I think of strong safeties inside more than outside. Obviously, better tackling from the corners would be the best possible upgrade, but that seems less affordable in season. Do you think a new safety just keeps them from being exploited in the passing game as they adjust to perimeter runs?
There's a lot there. I don't think the Steelers safety play has been a personnel problem. I think it's been a scheme problem. I don't think I'm not seeing guys just like missing assignments and getting torched. The only way I see a safety helping is if they just decide they're going to move Minkah Fitzpatrick to cornerback, which like he's playing there a lot anyway. So maybe, but that's really the only way I see them needing another safety. I certainly think they could add to corner. I mean, if they really want to go, I mean, everybody's wanted to talk about Patrick Surtain, and maybe you and I could take like a whole episode here and like talk about what that would actually take, whether it's realistic, whether it would be worth it, even if it is realistic. But like there are Look, Levi Wallace and Patrick Peterson have not played very well. You can upgrade that room without spending multiple first-round picks. And Desmond King and James Pierre have a combined 1 snap. So you've got like roster spots you could work with that you're not going to hurt yourself by cutting a guy loose. I don't know. I think corner's been the far bigger problem than safety. So I might disagree with Nick there. I think I would look to the outside more than I would look to safety. They definitely, if they could find a strong safety that could do all of the jobs and not have to mix and match personnel, like a true complement to Minkah Fitzpatrick, that would be great. The problem is those guys are usually expensive, and I don't really know that safety is where you want to tie up boatloads of cap space. It would be better to just draft that guy. That's what they need. They need to draft, Terrell Edmonds over again, except maybe get a guy who's a little bit better this time. But that's what they're looking for, right? I don't really think they need some sort of piecemeal addition to their safety room.
The name that keeps coming to mind for me is Jeremy Chin, playing on the 0-6 Carolina Panthers. But the question is, he will be a free agent at the end of the season. What does that look like in terms of a payday for him? I don't know. I don't know how expensive he's going to be or what he's looking for. But that's a guy that also can drop into the box. He's played some center field for them. He can play like a linebacker at times. He did a lot of different jobs for that Carolina defense. So I don't know.
There's a lot of similarities between him and Keanu Neal, though. They're not that
there is,
of a player. Maybe Chin's a little bit better, but probably not a lot better. That just feels like more of the same to me.
That was one of my guys during that draft. So I'm always going to be attached to him, though. So I have no attachment to Keanu Neal other than he plays for the Steelers right now.
Nice, man.
All right. But we appreciate the comments, Thomas.
And the flattery. That is number one way to get your stuff read here.
I hope that people are starting to pick up on that, because that's how you get the comments read. So continue to do that. Always start off by saying how great we both are, or how much you love the show, something like that.
Yeah, whatever you got. It's fine.
The 2 best looking podcast hosts doing Pittsburgh sports, anything. I'm just giving suggestions now at this point, but anything along those lines.
Yeah.
Alan, tell the people they can find you.
At @Saunders_PGH on X, at PGH Steelers Now is the site's account, SteelersNow.com. Read the word so I can get paid. Big stuff like that. Coordinator story is SN Plus subscribers only. Use my promo code Allen10. Get yourself 10% off, and it's well worth it. And that's it.
Did we have everybody?
No, we do need a couple people to get into. If you won something in the giveaway day on Thursday and you have not been in touch with me, say I talked to Zach, I talked to Daryl, I talked to Doug and Joel and Monongahela Mike and Jamie. So I think maybe just our socks winners and PHX Splash.
So Tristan Stone 427 Shaker X300 and Phoenix Splash.
Yeah,
that's who we need to hear from.
Get in touch with me, Twitter DM or email Saunders14007 at yahoo.com. Either way, I'll get that stuff out to you, and then I'll get them all in the mail, because almost everyone that won is from out of town. I'm mailing something to Wisconsin. I'm mailing something to Arizona. Monongahela Mike no longer lives in Monongahela. It's just
what?
Wow. I know, right?
My world has been crushed right now.
Yeah, right. Who knew?
But you know what that says, though? That's a good sign that there are a lot of people not in Pittsburgh listening or watching this show, which is really cool.
We have a global audience here, Smitty. I don't know if
I'm waiting for somebody to be like, "Hey, can you ship something to Ireland?"
I cannot ship something to Ireland. Well, maybe, I don't know. We'll see how much it is, but we'll work with you. But Steelers are getting big in Mexico, but I don't speak any Spanish. We need another podcast for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I am Zachary Smith, PGH. We're going way off the rails now, so let's stop right here before that happens too much. But when you get Alan and I together, this is bound to happen. So yeah, thank you for watching and listening to this episode. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. If you are listening somewhere else, be sure to leave us a 5-star review as well. We will be back tomorrow to talk about whatever the Steelers decide to provide us with during Tomlin Tuesday or anything else. Yeah. But until then, for Alan Saunders, I'm Zachary Smith. Thanks for jumping in and taking another ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive.